Tabletop games. They have existed for as long as anyone can remember. And the most obvious one being chess. Wait, how long has chess been? Hold on, let me check. Oh, I see now. I'm not here to talk about the normal type of tabletop games. Oh no, this is big boy turf, baby. So, we are going to talk about one universe of tabletop games that I took interest very late actually. The grim dark world of Warhammer.
What is your pledge?
My pledge is eternal service.
Well, I got into Warhammer thanks to Bricky's videos, but back then I just thought it was just another game. But when I found out that it had more to it than meets the eye, then I got surprised. There was so much of it, like the lore, the characters, the story, and how big and expansive the world is, and how grim dark it is, and has the very good aesthetics, the gothic aesthetic, and many others of its different factions and so on and so forth. But the Warhammer franchise itself is currently in a bit of a problems right now, at least in terms of the board games and the other medias, as we know. I can show you a few examples like this. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about the games themselves. Also, because YouTube has once again changed their algorithm, please consider liking the video, sharing it to others, commenting on it, as well as subscribing to the channel and clicking for notifications on new videos. It would help out a lot for the channel. So let's begin with Space Marine 2. Okay, so while I did play Space Marine 2, I did actually play Space Marine 1 last year on my PS3. As you can see here from the photo of my copy of it, which I actually got from eBay on the one country you would not expect, Italy, or one would say Italia. But anyways, back to Space Marine 1. It was a fun game, I won't lie. The combat was great, and Titus as a character was also great, and his eventual downfall and being sent to the Inquisition was also surprising. But hey, this is Warhammer. Suspicion is suspicion everywhere. But I felt like that the enemies were a bit too tanky, at least the ones that came during the last few chapters and missions. But and forced me to most of the time take cover, which when you're in fact a space marine who can try to go by force to take them out, if you see the lore perspective of what I'm mentioning. But yeah, I think I enjoyed the game, but I think the Space Marine 2 is a far better improvement in my opinion. And due to unfortunately not having an Elgato card, I wish I could show some recordings of it, but even that's rare where I'm living at the moment. So unfortunately, just stick to whatever footage I find on YouTube when it comes to Space Marine 1. But I will mention the Space Marine story when I go for the Space Marine 2 story. So that's my only opinion on Space Marine 1. It's a good game and everybody should play it. And it's far better than any other garbage that's been made today from the western side of gaming industry. You know what I mean. But anyways, let's get into Space Marine 2. And also just a reminder, all footage that I'm using of Space Marine 2 is from my own gameplay on the PS5, which I have already gameplay walkthrough put on my channel, as you can see right here. Now let us begin. Space Marine 1 was a good game and did get its attention by fans and had good sales, but for Relic Entertainment this was a sign that they could make a sequel. But however, this also came during a time when third-person shooters were dwindling in by 2010s and new trends were starting to set up for games. But there was also another problem. Their publisher for Relic Entertainment, THQ Nordic, had went bankrupt in December of 2012, leaving the IP in limbo until it got under Focus Home Entertainment. You know, the guys behind the publishing of games like Atomic Heart and Evil West and that Shadow Warrior 3. Games which I have played to a degree, but through either disc or through my PS Plus subscription. Why do people still stick to this plan? I don't know. But, anyways, the game was made under Saber Interactive, who with their publisher being obviously Focus Home Entertainment, they made the game, and now we got Space Marine 2 in 2024. Even though I played the game in 2025, don't blame me. I had financial problems at the moment. So, well, now we're here. So we can now start discussing regarding Space Marine 2 as a whole. So Space Marine 2 takes place roughly 100 or 1000 years after the events of Space Marine 1 and after the events of Warhammer 40k Bolt Gun. So, a Tyranid invasion happens by a splinter fleet of the High Fleet Leviathan during the Fourth Tyrannic War. And now it's up to us, a member of the Death Watch team, to take them out, or at least to a degree slow them down. It goes as well as you would expect. Well, after that badass intro, we cut to the game itself as they show us the tutorial, the mechanics, and so on. I think it does a great job at it. But as we go further and deeper, we see our dead comrades being destroyed by Tyranids and unleash our deadly vengeance on them. Like Darius here, for example. Poor guy didn't even make it past the several thousand Tyranids. But hey, he gave us his gun at least. Eventually, after murdering several thousand Tyranids, we find a virus bomb being held by our buddy here and go forward with the mission as usual. Eventually, our fellow team leader takes the virus and puts it inside a shell which is way too big for a gun. But hey, this game has a very notoriously big guns that I like, and I am no problem against. As he slowly pushes it for insertion. Take that joke as you will. But anyways, we get the cannon activated, and as you would expect, the Tyranids do not like that, so they try to assault our dear kill team leader. But we succeed in launching it anyway to Sun, and while our good old kill team leader gets overwhelmed by a dozen Tyranids, he crashes, lands on the ground, and removes the helmet to reveal to be none other than Titus himself. And Titus, being the badass that he is, tries to fight until the very last end. Until the Carnifex decides that, hey, you're not gonna win this match, and kills him instantly. Really should have called for that backup, bro. But anyways, he gets saved and gets turned into a Primaris Marine, one of the more recent versions of the Space Marines. Overall, a great starting mission to the game, and introducing the Tyranid threat and bringing back old mechanics and new to teach the player. So anyways, let's get to the next one. So Titus gets reinstated back into the Ultramarines, but has told by that chaplain to keep everything secret regarding his past when it comes to Leandros and Chaos Shard that happened during the events of Space Marine 1, and because Lord Calgar has been given him a second chance to prove that he is not infected by chaos. Now let's meet the other characters. That being Captain Akran, the one leading the assault against the Tyranids. And he introduces the two new Space Marines who would assist Titus in this mission. These are Gadriel and Charon, who will assist us in the mission, and since we are lieutenant, they'll have to listen to our orders. Charon is someone who deeply does trust Titus, even though his positioning as lieutenant for their team seems a bit off, especially for Gadriel, who seems to be a bit more suspicious regarding Titus. I wonder why that sounds familiar. But anyways, we land on Kodaku, get the big guns, and destroy a bioship. Yippee.
than to have to glue you back together in hell!
After blowing up a high ship, we are given the next task of finding a archmagos named Nozick. He's been doing himself stuck in an imperial place because, hey, Mechanicus like to extract data every day, every time. So now we have to save his sorry ass. But Titus has an idea of finding some way to, how do you say, terminate the hive around the facility by using literal mining facility with a rupture tanks for that, as you can see here. He says it will kill all of them and in the valley and give them at least some advantage to escape. Oh boy, I wish it was that easy because, as you would expect, there is another party involved. You'll see what I mean. We reach Nozick, but he refuses to leave the complex because he wants his data from the research site he was at. So Titus agrees to, help him out because, hey, we cannot disagree with the Mechanicus because they build our weapons and shit. And we reach the facility while our other team, that being the secondary squad in the Operations Inferno, are busy doing, burning the Tyranids, as you can see here. While that was done, it gave us a bit of time to leave and the military complex some time to defend the other Tyranid horde. But as you would expect, things don't go to plan and Nozick's ship crash lands in Tyranid territory like an idiot. I don't know why, but hey, everything crashes in this game. They should put their policies a bit more stronger. But anyways, we reached the crash site and Nozick has been, how you would say, impaled by Spike. Yeah, that's painful. But Titus immediately assumes that it might have been done by the forces of chaos, as you can see from the symbols being crafted here. He even says it himself. Titus then sees the ship and notices that the word of someone has been named. Now, whether he's a chaos leader or not, it's not assumed still. But he goes by the name of Imura, as you can see. But there is some unknown cargo within the ship that for some reason triggers Titus to a point where he gets weakened. Like really weakened, like he's not able to handle whatever is inside that cargo piece. Then the Mechanicus show up to pick up the cargo and Titus passes out. Titus does wake up and overhears Charon and Gadriel's conversation regarding the Chaos Forces and the Rubicon surgery of Titus. However, Titus does want to talk to Acheron regarding the Chaos Forces attacking the ship and the cargo within it. And he's surprised a bit, like Acheron was never told about this. But now that there is a chaos threat within the system, they have to take this seriously. So they also know that they are after the project regarding the behind the cargo known as Aurora, and that Archmagos Nozick's disciple might be next in place to handle the project, who is somewhere within the Hive City. That Hive City being Avrax. So we headed out there. And wouldn't you know it, even this Hive City is also being invaded by the Tyranids. So we go look for Luz, not him personally, more so his location to a Mechanicus facility. Titus and their crew eventually do find the facility and find a location of Luz, but Titus finds something suspicious within the files themselves. One of those files mentioning Project Aurora itself, a project that the Mechanicus have been talking about, which has also been mentioned throughout the game as well. So when Titus opens the files, he finds something regarding it, that it's being powered by a power source from the first Space Marine one. That being the Chaos Shot that Namrot was after to become a Daemon Prince. And he is mad that the Mechanicus even got their hands on it. But this is more explained in Bolt Gun, but I'll get to that game another time. But anyways, after they acquired a location, they regroup back on the barge and, arguments happen. Titus warns Acheron that the shard, or should I say the crystal, powers chaos energy and belongs to the dark gods. And saying that it almost blew up Graia, the place fight where we had with the orcs against in Space Marine 1. So he even warns them, saying that it's not worth it. But Acheron then says that this was actually approved by the Primarch and the Mechanicus Authority. Titus protests, but unfortunately he doesn't get listened to. So Akron tells them to be quiet. Even these two start to suspect that being Charon and Gadriel regarding Titus's past even more. But Charon still wants this team to be intact, but Gadriel is starting to get more suspicious about this. It's even hinted at this dialogue if you hear it correctly.
Do not keep us in the dark.
It is not your concern.
You criticize the captain for withholding intelligence, and yet you treat us to the same evasive obscurity.
Stray words have cost me dearly.
So you do not trust us?
Brothers, calm yourselves, lest you face the chaplain's censure.
I swear to God, nowhere is safe in this universe, especially among your friends as well. But anyways, that's the Warhammer world for you. But let's continue with the story. Anyways, we do arrive in the area where of Avarax where Luz is currently being held at, and so we go to save him like we do always. We fight our way through the bridge area of the temple where Luz is and find a man named Varelus who Charon seems to know personally, judging by their interaction, but that's not important. What is important is what happens next. Titus and crew eventually arrive at the other side of the bridge and inside a building where there seem to be Cadian soldiers who seem to be acting suspicious. When Valerius asks regarding them about their commander and why they're even stationed here, Charon finds something noticeable on his arm. Chaos.
Ambush!
Kill them!
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
But we are space marines, so we immediately annihilate their asses instantaneously without any mercy. But Charon is still pissed. So what does he do? Well, simple. He decides to go at the enemy alone. Well, that too while Titus and Galadriel have to take care of him from afar. You know what, I can understand. He lost a friend, so of course he's gonna bring vengeance on them. So we cut our way through more Chaos Marines and demons in order to reach Charon and regroup with him so that we can find Luz again, which we eventually do as he's being attacked by the Chaos Marines. So we fight off against the Chaos Marines and eventually save Luz from being captured by them. We do save Luz and he thanks us, but he even asks regarding Nozek, but Titus immediately tells that he's dead. So a little bit shocked by this, he's not sure what to say. And Titus immediately tells him that he's to become the next Archmagos, take his position. So Luz doesn't say much and just complies to come aboard. While heading back to the battle barge, Titus warns Luz that the artifact is dangerous. But Luz then even says something about Titus, like here, you'll see.
Dangerous.
I have spent my life studying it. I assure you it's quite safe. In the right hands.
Arrogance.
Arrogance.
Why must the Mechanicus meddle with the unknown?
We follow the will of the Omnisire.
Go ahead.
Titus, report to Captain Akaran immediately on arrival.
Confirmed.
Titus. A Captain Titus was killed on the Forge world of Graia over a century ago. He died holding the power source in his hands.
This truth, however, fuels more suspicion to Gadriel and Charon, who are doubting even Titus even more than they should. We arrive back at the battle barge and Gadriel is getting even more suspicious of Titus, and Charon is trying to ask for help paying him, but Titus is still angry when Charon went on a killing spree against the Chaos Marines. But we arrive to Captain Akaran and he gives us bad news that the Chaos Space Marines are now showing up on every part of Avrax and other planets. Akaran suggests that they use the Aurora weapon, but Titus is against this. However, Titus gives a second suggestion saying that whether we can call Calgar for help. But the Astropath communication tower is surrounded by Tyranids, so there's no high chance. But Titus suspects that the Tyranids are being led by a very powerful hive tyrant strain known as a hive tyrant. And it's somewhere within the outskirts of the tower area in the city. So if they can kill that thing, they can have a very good chance of reaching the tower without any issues. So while Titus and his team approach the communication tower, a second team will deal with the hive tyrant. While Titus and his crew fight off against the entire Tyranid horde in order to defend the Astropath tower from not being torn apart like a shoe toy, our other kill team, Space Marine crew find the hive tyrant and proceed to start murdering it as quickly as possible. And they eventually win, of course, in this scenario. And this causes a chain reaction where all other Tyranids die instantaneously, giving us a chance to talk to the Astropaths. We do eventually reach the Astropaths communication ritual area, and while this guy is not being kind to us that we have to send a message given the Tyranids have cast a shadow dwarf, the lady allows us to communicate. And she asks what Titus' message is.
Give me your message. I have it. Let us begin.
So the Astropath choir tried to do the ritual to make the communication to Calgar, but something goes very wrong with the ritual, and Astropath then starts to point at Titus, calling him a heretic for working with chaos. Gadriel tries to execute him, but Charon instead executes the Astropath and killing her. And instead, she literally disintegrates, and it turns out to be the Thousand Suns sorcerer known as Emora, trying to manipulate her like a puppet. No doubt the Astropath might have given a good chance for Emora to access the place through the warp. But anyways, Emora arrives, we fight him, and he runs away like an idiot. Because he has a much bigger plans for the Space Marines coming forward. And wouldn't you know it, the Chaos Forces are going after Aurora on the tomb world of Dimerium. So they have to go there. And Charon explains that he has saw Chaos Forces before when he was a boy. So he was able to find out regarding the Astropath being puppeted. But Gadriel, now feeling guilty of almost killing Titus assures him by telling that he has to end these suspicions. And of course, he's okay with it. And so they now head for Dimerium, where they have to do the final battle with Chaos Forces. And Titus does the greatest plan that he used in Space Marine 1 by literally orbital dropping from a small ship and towards the planet. Which, whenever I look at this sequence, it's visually appealing for some reason. Seeing the debris and every other items blowing up here and there, it's pretty cool. I won't lie. While Titus and his team deal with the Chaos Forces, a secondary team in another operation mission are busy trying to send a literal battle barge flying towards the giant's blue spire, which it does hit eventually, causing a good blow to the enemy forces. Titus and his team eventually arrive at the excavation site where Luz is and is going to activate Project Arrow, and we see some Necron symbols on the walls. But anyways, we go forward and deeper into the tunnels and eventually find Luz, who is planning on activating the Aurora device, but Titus tries to confront him, telling him it's dangerous, but Luz still thinks this can work. Then for some crazy reason, Emora shows up at a very accurate time. He cannot break through the force field, so he'll try to kill Titus and his crew first, then go for the Luz behind the shield. We eventually do fight the Hellbrute and kill it, so there's nothing wrong with that. Luz in a last attempt activates Aurora using the Chaos Shard, and eventually it does work, and Emora gets, teleported away, or at least disintegrated from existence as he is no longer there. This, for some reason, impresses Luz, and he thinks that with this he can to some degree prevent chaos from ever ravaging the Imperium ever again. He really thinks that, but that's where things get a bit more crazy, because actually this was a full-blown elaborate plan by Imura to cause him to realign the machine itself and allow the Chaos Forces to actually invade at full power. So basically it was all for naught. And Imura then decides to kill Luz without any need for him anymore. So yeah, Imura then escapes with the artifact in hand and causes the entire cave to collapse on top of Titus and his team, and with their fates unknown, but in the next mission it's clearly shown that they survived. So me saying fate unknown means nothing, but hey, it's the thought that counts at least. So yeah, a big twist in disguise, because hey, demons of Singe have always been tricksters and planners from the beginning. And hey, when you have a chaos god that looks like this, can you not see the intelligence behind this plan? Back to the story, Titus and his team do survive and meet up with Akaran to discuss their next plan of attack. And Akaran tells us that Warp Rift is getting bigger and bigger, and not a single shot of fire is working on it. So that's a problem. Titus and his other Space Marine brothers try to fight the Chaos Horde as strong and quickly as possible, but they are starting to get slowly overwhelmed by their numbers, until a certain chapter master shows up for an entrance. So Lord Kalgar finally arrives with help, but the danger is not over yet. For so long as the artifact powers Imura, it's still difficult to deal with him. So they devise a plan to rotate the pillars back to their original positions, which can force Imura to be weakened enough that they can strike a killing blow. They do just that, and then rush towards Imura, who escapes within the warp or Immaterium, as they will call it, and they do a fight there, break the crystal and save the day. Luckily enough though, Captain Titus survived the explosion without much problem, because hey, he can survive anything at this point, and Kalgar says that his duty is not yet done. But he succeeded anyway. Everyone regroups back at the battle barge, and Titus gets an award known as the Laurels of Victory. It's a type of military, badge of honor, one would say. This will at least give him the respect he needed, and perhaps no longer being suspected by anyone. However, this is not the end for Titus's work, at least. Kalgar is asking that he needs him for a mission somewhere, so he accepts. And that the chaplain will also explain to him what the job will be. So, before they make the preparations to leave, Titus gives his farewells to Captain Akaran and to his two brothers, Gadriel and Charon, one last time.
Wait! There's more!
Then suddenly the chaplain starts talking to Titus, congratulating that he succeeded in showing both his brothers and Kalgar that he is not of chaos and not suspicious at all. Then suddenly he also tells us that we done well also. But then his tone suddenly shifts.
The stain of suspicion never completely fades. I will be watching you. Should you falter on the path for even a moment, I will show no mercy. Leandros.
So yeah, Leandros decides to show his goddamn face after several years, and we are to assume that he'll be our watcher here. The fact that he was also arguing with Titus in the other scenes makes it more sense why he was suspicious of Titus to begin with. It was like he knew him from the very start. But this was a nice reveal in my opinion. Then Titus sits on the Thunderhawk and flies away to his next destination, with the Imperium's ships flying proudly through the great depths of space. Overall, I think the story is fun and simple. Nothing too crazy, nothing too complex, but it does at least fix Titus matters when it comes to Ultramarines' suspicion regarding his resistance to chaos. And we all know that there will be a third game, and there's also a DLC upcoming, but we are not sure when. But overall, I think there's nothing wrong with the story. There's everything is simple, everything is right. The finale is epic, early written. There's action, there's good scenes. The characters are also written perfectly and fit the theme of Warhammer. Seeing Lord Calgar, an important figure from the Warhammer lore, was also surprising. And seeing Leandros' face again just makes me feel both surprised yet filled with rage, knowing full well he put Titus in the spot in the first place. But then again, though, that was more or less how Warhammer world works. Everybody needs to be treated with suspicion, whether it's their allies or enemies. But it's just that Leandros and Titus did not communicate well when it came to the matters in the first game. So yeah. If I were to look at the story, I would give it a good 9 out of 10 in terms of what it's trying to say in the Warhammer world. Otherwise, I don't have much of another opinion to give. Most of the story is mostly gets foreshadowed by the action and the cinematic set pieces and spectacle. So, good story, but I'm more interested in the gameplay and action, which we will get into now. Space Marine 2's combat is basically the same as it was in Space Marine 1, but with a few alterations here and there. For once, they added a parry system, because every Souls game these days needs a parry system to show it, which I have no problem against. It's actually fluid and does create a chance to deal some extra critical hit damage to your enemies. The other thing that was changed was that you can only switch to only 2 weapons, that being a normal weapon and a secondary weapon, rather than having 4 weapons with you at the same time, which was a system that was in Space Marine 1. No doubt it was done so that you can experiment a little bit more with other guns rather than just choosing a specific set of 4 and just calling it a day. So that's that. But melee combat hasn't changed that much. It's the same. You do a light combo, then do a light with heavy combo to create a shockwave type attack that disperses enemies and can create some crowd control for you. Perfect against swarms. Then there is the execution system was added, similar to what Doom used in its own games. It's similar like that. If you get an enemy stun locked and they start flashing red, you can then do a killer execution that will allow you to regain your shield at the top bar of your health. This is useful, and whenever it's done, it's actually pretty cool to watch. It's like it shows the true Space Marine experience. Yes, you can do that in Space Marine 1. It's a bit more, how do you say, gruesome in Space Marine 2 with added graphics. And yeah, there's not much to say about the gameplay. It sticks to the same formula as it did with Space Marine 1, just putting a few minor tweaks here and there. And the grenades are also the same. There being normal grenades, then sticky grenades, shock grenades, then the melter grenade, which creates a larger explosion, which you have to remote detonate. And that's about it. There's no big, massive overhaul of the game. So that's why I'll keep this segment short as it is. Then let's continue on with the operations. Operations, I don't have much to say. It's basically a side mission content that you can play whenever you like to, and they are regularly adding new ones, especially with the recent updates. But the difference is that instead of playing Titus or any named characters, you're playing 5 different classes of Space Marines. That being The Assault class, the Tactical class, the Vanguard class, the Bulwark class, the Sniper class, and last but not least, the Heavy class. Each class has their own unique perks, abilities, and weaponry that can be used for that specific one, and you can also customize your certain Space Marine depending on which class they are. Each are different, and headsets and abilities will be somewhat same, or guns as well, but each has their own specialty. I don't mix and match much, but for the YouTube videos I made, I had to mix and match a little bit so that I can experiment a bit. First is the Tactical class. The Tactical class is the most easy and most straightforward class to pick for the operations, because you're mostly going to be relegated to utilizing the normal weapons that we've used in the main campaign, such as like primary weapons being bolt guns and bolt rifles, etc., and your normal melee weaponry. But you can also utilize a ability known as the scanner, as you can see within the gold insignia there. It will scan enemies, highlight them, but due to this they will also take double the damage as well. So if for any beginners, this might be the first class to choose. The second class you use is the Assault class, which is basically a melee weapon build where you can use any weapon, may it be hammer or power fist. You will be able to use a jetpack to fly here and there, but your secondary gun will be mostly a pistol. But it is effective for close range combat if anybody is interested. But there is a risk to it, considering you're more vulnerable in melee range, unlike the far range combat of other classes. But if you're interested, it's worth trying out. I've tried it out myself, so it's good. The third class is the Vanguard, where, well, it's the most weakest class, considering you have only 2 shields that can keep you protected before you lose health. But you have an advantage that this class is actually more agile, and with the help of the grapple hook you can get close to an enemy and defeat him. Although I wouldn't recommend this because the risk of dying is more easier with the Vanguard class. The fourth class is called the Bulwark class. Basically it's a sword and shield melee class that allows you to fight, but you can also use the secondary pistol, and there's an ability that allows you to heal by setting up a banner. There's not much to it. It's just like the Assault class but more defensive. The second class is the Sniper class. Basically you will be locked to only sniper related weapons. So basically you can also use an ability that allows you to go invisible and hide from enemies. However, if you start firing, then your invisibility will decloak, and also much like the Vanguard, it has very low health. So there's a higher chance of you dying with this class as well. So it's up to you to choose it at your own risk. The last and final class is the Heavy class. Basically it's a tank build type class where you use the most heaviest weaponry that have the most ammo, but you also have the advantage of using a shield ability that allows you to block projectiles. Other than that, it's very powerful if you want to get the most ammo out of any class. So I would highly recommend this one. Oh yeah, one more thing. You can also customize your character however you want to, because much like in real life Warhammer where you paint your characters, you can also cosmetically make them whatever you want. But you can also take advantage and utilize the upgrade tree of the weapon systems to get a better advantage and get some perks as well. So like I said, it's your build, your choice. You can use anything. So, and with that we will now conclude and reach the last area of the video, the multiplayer. Then I'll give my final opinions in the conclusion and give an announcement as well. In the multiplayer side of things, we have more so Annihilation, Capture and Control, and Seize Ground. They're sure interesting, but there's not much exciting going on. I'll explain it step by step. In Annihilation, it's basically you have to kill as many enemies as possible, and the team with the most points will claim victorious. It's basically like Call of Duty's team deathmatch. Just you're doing it with Space Marines. Next game mode is Seize Ground. Basically you have to capture 3 different objective points within the map and make sure to stay on them in order to increase your points and then claim victory. Pretty much this match mode also exists in Call of Duty, so anybody who's done these things are more than familiar with it. The last one is Capture and Control. Basically you have to move from one location and capture it, and it will move once again, and so you have to catch up. This game mode is not my favorite because not many players even try to attempt these servers, but it's fun idea if you try it. Then there is siege mode. Basically, you have to defend against a long wave of enemies. Use and also do challenges to get extra points for supplies, which can involve a lot of things like, say, more troops, dreadnought, or so on and so forth. Basically, it's your typical wave type gameplay. And now it's time to conclude this video with something important to say regarding what Warhammer Space Marine 2 means for the future of gaming, especially for single player ones. I'll start right about now. You know, the more I play and look at Warhammer, the more I see how things were back in the old days during the 2000s and 2010s. Games used to be fun, and there used to be creativity, there used to be stories to tell. Even if some of those stories may have not been everyone's cup of tea, there was at least something unique to say. Space Marine 2 reminds me of that era where games were just used to be fun and were meant to be fun only. Were not always microtransaction problems or talking down to you or had anything political from real life. Games are meant to for escapism and of course fun also, but as you can see with today's games, it's not been the same. And with Space Marine 2, I can hope at least that the future for games, especially single players games, can be brought back once again like how it used to be. And I just hope it doesn't go downhill from here. And I'll say this: for Ultramar and for the Emperor of Mankind. So hi everyone, how's it been? It's been a little bit hectic these few past weeks considering what's going on here in the Middle East, but I'm okay, I'm fine. I wanted to announce that I took a lot of time with this video because I ignored it and focused on uploading gameplay footage instead in my YouTube channel rather than trying to come up with something. I thought it was the easiest way, but now I notice that some of the videos, while they are doing all right, they are not increasing my subscriber count to some reason. So I have decided that I'll stop using CapCut for a while and try to use DaVinci Resolve to create perfectly titled videos like how other YouTubers have done. And if it can help me a lot, that you guys can help in liking my videos, subscribing to the channel, and also to click up your notifications to be aware of anything. I will use the gameplay videos as my necessary footage, and now that I have a laptop that is compatible for the editing software, it should do the trick. So stay tuned for the next video and see you all soon.